Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Hanging Out for a Living, where we dive into the power of genuine connections and friendships in the business world. Yes, that's possible. Today, we have a very special guest, Corina Goetz, a Middle East specialist who has spent years mastering the art of meaningfully connecting through cultural understanding and effective communication. Corina has worked with prestigious clients such as Corinthia London, Sarova Group, and Monteverde Tuscany. Hopefully, I've pronounced those correctly. If I haven't, I apologize. Helping them build better relationships, increase revenue, and really avoid those cultural no-nos or faux pas, as we like to say. Her expertise is a game changer for anyone looking to do business in the Middle East. So, Corina, welcome to Hanging Out for a Living.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Let's dive into our question, shall we? So,
Sure.
can you share your journey of becoming a Middle East specialist and what really inspired you to focus on this particular region?
My background is actually in five-star hotels. So a lot of the places that you mentioned are five-star hotels in Europe, in London where I'm based. And I kind of fell into this very much by accident because I'm not the typical person that you would assume that deals with clients and people from the Middle East. Because I'm a woman, I'm German, and I don't speak any Arabic. But all of those things are actually factors in my success. So when I started working in sort of these five-star hotels, I then started meeting a lot of people from the region and a lot of high-profile people from the region, like head of states, royalty, CEOs, families. And at that time, sort of like in the early 2000s, there wasn't really that much information. And the internet was just kind of coming up. Social media hadn't really, been around like it is now. But I had a really good mentor, and I just loved dealing with people from there and like their hospitality and everything. And I just also realized that a lot of them were very misunderstood because people just didn't understand the culture. Not that I did in the beginning, but I really made an effort to learn and to find out and ask more questions and meet more people and travel there. And then I thought, wouldn't it be great to share this knowledge with lots more people so they can just do better business and they can just understand why certain things happen and the way they happen and be prepared for it. So this is kind of how it all started.
And that's actually a great segue into our next question in that what are some of the most common misconceptions about the Middle East that you've encountered, and how do you help your clients navigate these cultural differences?
I mean, there's loads of things. I think one is one of the most basic ones that I'm still surprised that sometimes I get this is where people say, "Do they even speak English?" And I'm like, "Wow." A lot of people from the Gulf, like from Saudi or UAE or Qatar, they've actually studied, in the UK and France, in the US. So they like a lot of them don't just speak English. They speak English, French, Arabic. So they're very well educated. And I think that's very much underestimated. So I think that's one of the things I teach, never make really assumptions because people may know a lot more than you think. But also there's other ones that where where sometimes companies think, we have to go in there and we have all the expertise. And maybe that is correct in that particular field.
Right.
But how you sell in America or in the UK or in Europe is very different to how you do business in the Middle East. And I think, the way I think you should approach any client is you should try and do a bit of research. You should try and understand what is the country about, what do they want to achieve, what is important to people, and then see how you can tie that back to like your product, your expertise and connect like this. And I think this is where a lot of companies go wrong. They just go in there with their expertise, all guns blazing, but they
Yep.
haven't really taken the time to do a little bit of research. And this is where I come in. So I can then basically give them, a bit of a speedy getting them up to date on, do they just want to deal with Saudi, or do they want to deal with the whole of the region, and what is important to know? So it's almost like a bit like a crash course, I would say.
Exactly. And and those, what you mentioned there, some of those are really, actually all of them are really great tips for anyone. And at the end of the day, we're all in sales, right? And many years ago, I had someone tell me about how they went to meet with a client, a potential client, and they were sitting across from each other, at a conference table. And this was here in the US. And the first thing out of that potential client's mouth was, "Show me that you know me." And this friend of mine just sat there and thought, oh my gosh, no one has ever asked me to do that. And so that was quite the learning experience for that person. But what you shared is absolutely brilliant, across the board, whether you're doing business in Saudi or here in the United States or in the UK. I mean, it's really some really great golden nuggets you shared there. Thank you. So onwards, could you provide an example of a significant success story where your guidance made a substantial impact on a client's business relationship or revenue?
So I had a client who does business in the Gulf, but also in Europe, and they were talking to a Saudi client about I think about it was a particular project, and that project was worth about 80,000 pounds, so maybe like about 100,000 US dollars. And it was going really well, and they were having this conversation, and then suddenly the conversation stopped. And he then said, well, he reached out a couple of more times to the Saudi client, but it was like basically it was complete silence. And he was like, I don't know, did I do something wrong? What am I gonna do? How am I gonna get this back on track? And so we had a conversation, and our advice again was very much like, you need to make this about your Saudi client. No sales pitch, no nothing about the business. So we gave him some information about something that was happening at the time and said, write something relating to this, but absolutely no business mention, no mention of this project, and then see what happens. And he did. And the client came straight back, and the deal was back on. So it really just showed that maybe, again, it was all about this, make it about them, make the connection about them, show them that you care, and that it's not just about business, that you care about them as people, as, as what they are going through. And that basically was all it took to get this deal back on the road.
That is absolutely brilliant. Build the relationship, make it your business to build relationships, right? And focus on that relationship. Don't sell. And we talk about here in the US anyhow, about the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the time we're building the relationships and 20% of the time we're marketing, but we never marry the two, right? So like to your point, don't talk about your company, don't sell, don't do anything like that. Add value to that person's business. So important. And we'll wrap up with this very last question, which is, what are some practical tips or steps that businesses can take to avoid the no-nos, the faux pas, and build really strong, respectful relationships with their Middle Eastern clients or clients in general?
I think one of the things that is very important is to stay up to date what's happening. And I know that's not always easy because the news moves so fast. And then also depending where you are in the world, you may not get that kind of news. So it's important, I think, to look for the right sources and see, what is happening, and then work with that to keep the relationship alive. But not only this, also, if you have done business, don't just leave it and ghost the people. I think stay in touch, because that could potentially lead to a lot more in that region. But if you just stay in touch and constantly send your sales pitch, people will check out and be like, oh, okay, another one of those. So that's why it's very crucial to know what's happening so you can react in the right way and then nurture that relationship. And I think a lot of companies just don't do that. And then maybe a bonus tip is also like see where your clients from the Middle East, like what is their preferred method of communication, because
Absolutely.
it's not necessarily what you think. A lot of people in Europe and maybe also in the US, they may have a very different way of communicating, but out there it may be a different social media tool or it may be a different messaging tool. And I think if you can meet them there, then that will be much more successful.
Absolutely. Well, folks, I hope you've been taking some notes because what Corina here shared is worth so much more than just dollars in the bank or euros or whatever currency we're all dealing in, right? And life's currency is really relationships. So thank you so much, Corina, for sharing your invaluable insights and experiences with us today. Your passion for bridging cultural gaps and really helping businesses thrive in the Middle East is truly inspiring. For our viewers who want to delve deeper into Karina's expertise and resources, her contact information is in the description of this interview. So don't miss out on the opportunity to elevate your business relationships and achieve a greater success. Continue the conversation with Karina and take the first steps to mastering the art of captivating your Middle Eastern clients. Thank you again, Corina, and we'll see everybody on another episode of Hanging Out for a Living. Bye for now.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.